I feel like we are in a moral crisis, and maybe this is kind of an obvious thing, and maybe it's something that people have come to over the course of the last at least couple of months, maybe longer. But I don't think we've said that out loud here. And I want to say that out loud here, at least in this conversation that we're having. I mean, take a look at the Epstein pedophile co-conspirator cover-up, the killing of American citizens for peacefully exercising their freedom of speech and the freedom to assemble. Masked, armed, unidentifiable men disappearing people from their cars, from their jobs, from schools. I mean, and the list goes on. Unwarranted house break-ins and seizures, using toddlers as bait to grab asylum protected parents. I mean, this is incredible. Enriching wealthy folks while the rest of us are struggling to just buy groceries. And then I feel like, in a lot of cases that we're looking for someone outside of ourselves to clean up this mess, to lead us out of this mess. And I think that's the wrong place to look. Hi, and welcome to New Answers Podcast, where we discuss solutions to the challenges facing us based on our personal experience. And as usual, I'm joined by my colleague Tiffany Lee. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Gwen.
To have this controversial, I guess, at least provocative conversation today. So what is your take on this? I mean, I feel as if all of this that's happening to us or happening around us is a moral crisis, first of all. And I do feel like people are like scrambling to find, okay, who's going to help us? Who's going to get us out of this stuff? And I think that's the wrong place to look. I think the answers outside of ourselves is not where we need to be looking because the answers are within ourselves. We have the leadership abilities within ourselves, and it's about making that connection to the higher power through our spirituality to give us guidance as to how do we need to proceed and to get us out of this mess. What's your take on it?
Gwen, that was a really powerful start. That
And I'm
was, and
feeling
it's,
so frustrated,
I know, I am too. And I'm thinking about this all the time, and we're talking about it in our classes and amongst, my spiritual community. And I don't want to do like spiritual bypass. I think that's really important. I think to a certain extent, the spiritual community has not until recently has not
Mhm.
been talking about it. They've been kind of like, let's just look towards the light and pretend like this isn't happening.
Yeah.
But that's not the way we can do it anymore. It's I don't believe it's the way we should have done it. I think we're here for a reason. Now
Mhm.
that is that's the key, right? Why are we here? And why are we going through all this? And why is there so much darkness?
Yeah.
And at least the science of mind and most spiritual philosophies, we're all one and everything is God. And a
Yes.
time like this, when we say everything is God, God is in everything, and you look at the what's going on, and you're like, how is God in that? You know, how how is God in that? And
Right.
everyone's from God. How is that person an expression of God? Right? Everyone
Hmm.
that's in the Epstein files, the pedophiles, the ICE agents, all the things. How is God in that? And that is, where we struggle, like seeing that.
Right.
Um, so it's kind of where you have to go bring yourself above the situation, above like earth, like giving it a God um point of view, really.
Hmm.
And Jesus says it doesn't matter if you think it or if you do it, it's the same. If you think about,
Right.
you know, stealing or if you do it, it's the same. So there's kind of no level to in the Christian word sin, it's all equal.
Hmm.
Um, or a mistake or being in shadow or negative light. So from a God's point of view, it's kind of all equal. We put the value on everything here.
Hmm.
So we've talked about this a lot, how if we live from the flow of spirit or
Yeah,
live from the flow of ego. And that's really all there is, because everything is God. So we're either aligning with spirit or we are in the ego edging God out and creating, because we're all creators. So everything we align from, we create from. So when we're aligning with spirit, we are creating from spirit. So we're creating light. When we are further from spirit,
right.
in the ego, in the unconscious ego, then we're creating from fear, jealousy, all the dark elements of the shadow, of our shadow side.
Absolutely. That
And
edging God out, right?
right,
We
yeah,
talked about this before. We always come back to the
exactly.
same thing because
Yeah,
I'm hoping people are hearing that.
yeah, because it comes down to the basics are we're all expressions of the creator here to experience life on this planet. And we have the free will to how we do it. Um, I had to download trying to understand how, as we are talking about, how
Mhm.
evil exists. And there's philosophers, that say there's no such thing as evil. And I have a hard time with that. I mean, we can call it
I do
whatever, but
too.
I'm going to call it evil. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Um, but how does it exist since everything comes from one source? We're all one and all comes from one source. So
yeah,
my belief is that it's because of the ego. So for me, for a long time, I made the ego the enemy. And some people say the ego, that's where people vary, that the ego is the enemy. And I was on that same
mm,
bandwagon, really.
hmm,
Only until recently, only because I've been really going within, trying to figure out like how people can do the things that they do to
yeah,
human beings. How are they so detached, really, from themselves? Because if you can harm another person, you're harming yourselves because we're all one.
right,
Because typically, if you have empathy, empathy comes from seeing something and you can feel it. That's what empathy is, and
yeah,
feeling it in yourself. So if you have zero empathy, that means you're detached from yourself,
yep,
and then you can
basically.
allow things to happen to other people and have no empathy.
Hmm.
So that just kind of came to me right now. 'Cause, but yeah, so the ego, though, when it's unconscious and there's no empathy for yourself and no, understanding of even yourself, if you can't have empathy for yourself, then how are you going to have empathy for other people?
For anybody else, exactly. You can't.
Yeah. And if you think of like the power structure is what we're looking at, right? When people do things,
Hmm.
they're taking a position of power over other people and
Hmm.
greed and,
Hmm.
all the negative elements of, personalities. Um, it's I got distracted by my dog doing something. Sorry. It's um it's a lack of it's a lack of self-understanding, right? Not
Right.
understanding. It's a lack of self-love. Oh, it's a lack of self-love. So they're trying to get that their grounding from money or from power over people
Yeah.
or trying to be beautiful by being the most insane, just they're just going down that. ego unconscious rabbit hole where it
Yes.
seems to be like no bottom, where the rest of
Mhm.
us are like, what's happening right now? You know?
Mhm. Yeah, so that's how these things that we were talking about, are happening because people are detached. They don't understand or they don't recognize or know themselves. And that's how this is, this cesspool is able um, to materialize in the way that it is. They are so detached and so distanced from, their connection to the source, to the divine invisible,
Hmm.
not to their ego. They're definitely attached to their ego and it's their subconscious, certainly not, I mean, it's their, whatever, the surface mind, right? And not the subconscious and not the connection to, as I say, God inspired, God centric.
Hmm.
It's all, it's their ego. And I guess I have to evolve to the place that you are, but I do see it as evil. I'm going to have to, meditate about this and really kind of develop myself to like a higher level. But when you are separating yourself from, God consciousness, and you are being, you're being motivated or being, your actions are coming from your ego. I guess there's a reason for that to happen, but it's, to me, it's evil. That's where evil comes in.
Yeah. Oh, just because I feel like I'm understanding it doesn't mean I'm really understanding it. Doesn't mean I'm okay with it at all. I'm empathic. I feel
Yeah,
for people. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's me
Hmm.
trying to understand like why is this happening? Why is this being allowed?
Yeah.
With our sole purpose. So the other thing that came to me recently was that we do know we're here on Earth School, right?
Yeah.
And and the reality is we're all one. We're all part of God. But when we come to Earth School, we are experiencing duality. And that's
Mhm.
purpose of the ego to give us the opportunity to experience duality. So instead of us being all one, the ego comes in and is like, you're going to be individual. That's where I comes in.
Ah, okay.
The I, not
Mhm.
all, not the one, but the I, the individual.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of like for each and every one as we come in, and who knows how many incarnations, it's where we with our soul development.
Mm.
Um, and the duality allows for us to develop our soul. So when we see a crisis, experience the duality, do we handle it from the ego, or do we
Mm.
learn and grow and see it, handle it from, the soul connection to source?
Yeah. 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 Yes, that's the question, right?
Right.
And that's the choice we can make.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, yeah, yeah. That is the
And we
choice that we make.
have free will.
Mm-hmm.
This and our free will is how we're going to create, right? Are we going to create
Yes,
from the ego? Are we going to create from source?
from
And
source.
said
Hmm.
earlier, but when we create, we there's cause and effect for everything, right? And there,
Right.
with the cause and effects, there's the role. So we can have an example of someone making a choice out of the ego. And I'm trying to think of an example,
Hmm.
because we can't go too far about, we can't talk too in detail about the things happening um, on this. But let's just say someone makes a choice from the ego, saying like they are hungry and they're fearful of not having their next meal. They see an opportunity and they think, I'm just going to steal that candy bar. Okay. There,
Yeah.
there is a cause. and their choice was to take action out of fear. So they stole.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say the effect of that was they got caught and then got arrested or and then there's another opportunity for fear in that, or
Mm-hmm.
another opportunity to still create. Are they going to create from the fear of being arrested, the fear of going to jail, or are they going to take a turn and basically trust source and be like, repent, I'm sorry, I don't want to go down that, like kind of readjust. We always have the opportunity to readjust. That's when the miracles happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you trust and you do your prayers and you trust that the universe, God source, will bring the people in to to help in that situation. And
Mm-hmm.
always you will receive what you give out. So let's just say you give out some negative energy, you did still, you're going to have to receive a balance there for
Mm-hmm.
that particular energetic exchange. Stilling is a lower energy. You're going to receive something for it, but it can end
Mm-hmm.
right there. And then you go on down this path, but going, making the choice to go down this path because they're in fear. Now I don't want to go to jail. And now I'm going to make a choice, maybe try to run or try to lie in court, and so, and then now that adds more energy towards the negative direction of the ego, because the ego isn't all about like, oh, I'm proud of myself or whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
about fear and you know um making that I decision without the connection to source. So if you're staying in that, and the further in that you get, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
where does it stop?
Yeah, exactly. Where does it stop? And let's look at another example in the wider community, in the macro world. And I know, and previously we've talked about how the need for some of this darkness and, the dark side is almost necessary because we know that there is a new earth that's rising. Um, but we don't have to, like you said it before, we don't have to accept it and just kind of say, okay, this too will pass and do nothing.
Right.
So so let's look at situations that we are seeing in the news, which, I taken it from my spiritual leader, Reverend Michael, who says the news is like a prayer request, right? So we hear about folks who are part of a political system and that have been given, I don't know, given this authority to basically disappear people. We've been hearing about um, ICE represent. I guess they're ICE representatives because they're masked and they're
Yeah.
armed and not necessarily easily identifiable, and they don't identify themselves, but they burst into people's homes and they take snatch people out of their homes because they have been designated or suspected of being undocumented residents. Okay, so how do we? So the people who are doing those acts are doing it because they have disconnected themselves from the source and are, you know, this is their ego, this is them following, I don't know, something
Orders.
from on high, but and they're doing it again, and it's more egocentric than it is source centered
Right. I mean, you can look at each, look, take, look at them individually as a person.
as a
What would it
person.
take
Yeah.
for them to do that? What is motivating them to do that? It's typically they feel unimportant. They feel like they've been convinced that their misery is caused by these people, by, racism is ignorance. Racism is feeling like there's other people that are going to, you know, hurt you in some way. It's an
Yeah.
insecurity, you know what I mean? So it's completely ego based on what we were
Yeah.
just talking about, right? It's
Yeah.
completely ego based. It's based in fear. It's based in wanting power over. So their wanting power over comes from their fear, you know, and
Hmm.
then they have this leader who's extremely in the ego, um, and he's giving them this false power. And doing
Hmm.
that, he's getting power from the powerless, you know, and it
Yeah. And it just perpetuates itself.
perpetuates itself, right?
Yeah. But I'm of the mind that there are more of us, who are
There is.
spiritually centered and, are, wanting, if not, because we are human and we're not always connected to source as we, would want to be. And hopefully we are making the right choices that are God centered and God conscious, but sometimes not always because we are human. But there are more of us who are at least have that kind of consciousness than there are of the other people, which is why we want to do this show and want to bring more of us out into the world,
Right.
and so that we're not hiding ourselves and that we are expressing from that source consciousness, from that God consciousness, and that we're all and that we all have that capability.
We do.
This God-inspired leadership, what I call God-inspired leadership. And I look at I know if you look at the Bible, I see Jesus Christ as being an example of that. He's a human being who, came here through, was God sourced, right? But he was a human on this earth, but he had that connection. I look at Dr. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we celebrated recently, a month ago, and who led the civil rights, he was one of the iconic leaders of the civil rights movement. And he, as I understand it, resisted having to be given that um, label and didn't think that he was the right person. He thought of himself as an ordinary minister, but he was God conscious, right? He was God centered. He was moving from a place of spirituality, and he eventually accepted his role. And so I'm hearing about these Buddhist monks. Again, they're connected to Source because they are monks and they're, practicing a particular theology. But these are a group of Buddhist monks. I don't know how many there are, but they are walking for peace from, I think, Texas to Washington, D.C. It's like a 2,300-mile trek. And then all along the way, as people are hearing about them, that they're drawing all of these, I think, God-centered people to them to support them, to provide them with water, to provide them with lip balm and, other things that would help um, uh, contribute to their comfort
Right.
as they're making this sort of journey across the country. So these are examples, I think, of I heard Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson say, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And I don't know if that's a quote from her or if she was quoting someone else. But I thought, yeah, that's exactly what we want to talk about is ordinary people who are God-centered, I would add that, can do extraordinary things, that we can make these changes and not allow this darkness to kind of take over, that we become the leaders we were looking for and we are waiting for. We
Right.
become those leaders.
Right. So what I want to say about God-centered people is that it's not, it's that we're all God-centered. Like we are all God. So is my dog. He wants to be like, don't forget me.
Yeah. Hi,
Everything and
Arrow.
everyone is
Hi, Arrow. Arrow is God's and God, he's a sentient being. Yes.
exactly. He's upset with me right now because he wants to go outside. So we're all God-centered. It's like
Yeah.
it's the knowing of who we are.
That's the key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the knowing of who we are. So when you don't know who we are, when you don't know who you are, you're looking for you're looking for the answer outside yourself. Because when
Yes.
you find the answer inside yourself, know who you are, and that comes with self-love, um, that's when you don't want to hurt others. That's when you raise your vibration. So that's when you become the light instead of the shadow.
Yeah, and you
That's
have
where
the
we need to
empathy.
be.
Yes.
The
Yes.
more of us that are there, because you said there's more of us, there is. This has been an era of the great awakening. And so there's more people awake to self-love and awareness of that they are an expression of God or Christ centered, even if they're not attached to any religion.
Right.
Um, they could be or they could not be. It doesn't matter because Christ centered God will come in you anywhere you are. You just have to acknowledge that you are. You know what I mean? We've had a lot of lies on us in order to control people. So
Hmm.
people, the elite can control, you know, so they made us believe that we were basically nothing and we have to be saved from the outside. And that's the
Yeah.
lie. You know,
Yeah.
we are actual equal creators with God for our lives, for this conscious world that we have right now. So the important part of that is how do we change it? And
Hmm.
you're correct, whereas it comes from within. It's raising the consciousness of the world. And when there's like, say, like the tipping point, the 51% of us are consciously higher and God centered, then the world changes. It's
Yes.
gosh, our minister was talking about this last Sunday
Oh.
with I think it's monkeys. It and so you see this in nature. It's not just monkeys, but you see it in nature, where
Hmm.
let's say I'm going to mess the story up, but I think it's researchable because I've heard a couple different people talk
Hmm.
about it. But
Hmm.
so there is this type of monkey that the monkeys liked a particular fruit. I think it was palm, anyway, a particular fruit, and they
Hmm.
would eat it. One of the monkeys, like when getting the fruit, it fell into the lake
Yeah.
and pulled it out and then ate it and discovered they like it better. So around that monkey, they started all doing that. And
Oh.
then that grew, you know, consciously because it goes to the fact that we're all one mind, even with the
Right.
monkey.
Yeah.
Somehow that new tradition of them putting the fruit in the water before eating it got around the world. And once it got to like 51% of monkeys doing it, then it was a complete change where like they all did it.
Mm. Mm.
Might have messed the story up, but basically what it's about is it's the consciousness, it's the level, it's the tipping point. So
Yeah.
we just need the tipping point. We don't have to look to like what leader is going to take do right and
Right.
stop what's happening because it doesn't look like it's happening. It doesn't look like any of those leaders. They're used to getting away with it.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't, they can't, you, we can't expect them to arrest themselves. You know what I mean? There
Right.
has to
Yeah.
be an interfering point. So
Yeah.
the light always overshadows the darkness. I mean, no matter how dark it is, you bring in one match and there's light. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
light always overshadows darkness. So raising our
That becomes
consciousness,
contagious. Yes. Hmm.
raising the consciousness is the way that we change
Hmm.
everything that's happening.
Hmm.
So that's why our show and all the shows out there are really important to like help people know who they are. I think that's the most important thing is for
I
people
think
to
so.
understand you are a creator, you are God, you are powerful, and everything you think, say, and do creates the world that you live in. So do it from the light. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
In every philosophy, religion, they say that anger, fear, all of those things are is not from God.
It's not from, yeah,
Obviously, everything's
not
from
from
God,
the
but
light.
it's not the way to make a decision.
Yeah. That's from ego. That's basically from ego.
Right.
Yeah. And so, as I said, we are the leaders we've been waiting for, um, to bring us out of this moral crisis and into the light so that that becomes predominant. I want to say something, and it probably is taking us off a little bit of the subject, but I'm going to try to figure it out. There was a story that I heard about in the last couple of days, maybe a couple 24 hours, of a little boy. I don't even remember what state he was in, 3-year-old toddler who was missing for hours. In little town, I think it was. And the sheriff or whatever, they were searching everywhere and they couldn't find this little boy. But somehow one of the deputies came upon this, and this is about it came upon this dog that was trying to get the deputy's attention and was barking and making, and moving around and, barking and then moving, moving forward. And it was as if it was saying, follow me. And so finally the deputy paid attention to the dog because the dog was very persistent. And finally he said, "Okay, boy, what are you telling me? What do you want me to do?" So he followed the dog, and the dog led him to this car where this toddler was locked inside. Somehow, I don't know how he got inside the car. Somehow he locked himself in and couldn't get out. But the dog saw that and brought it to the attention of those who were helping to find this child. I guess I'm mentioning it to say that this empathy, the empathy, the God consciousness is not limited to human beings, that because of our connection to nature, you
Hmm.
mentioned nature, that's what triggered that for me. And all sentient beings, all living things, that we are connected if we pay attention. And
Hmm.
thank goodness, thank God, this deputy paid attention to that dog and didn't just dismiss it. And he said, this was a beat that he worked all the time. He never saw that dog before. And I think it was kind of a stray. I don't think it had any, um, you know, ties around it. What do you call his neck, whatever, identification around him. And he hasn't seen the dog since. But the dog was where he needed to be to get the attention of this deputy to get to rescue that child out of that car and bring him to. So I thought, oh my God. So here's another example of how we are connected, to every living thing, right? If we pay attention, and that every living thing, has this ability to, well, we somehow are able to communicate with each other, especially if we are God connected and are
So all one.
we're all one. We're all one. We're all living things. We're one. But we're in different forms, and we can, yeah. So yeah, I was going to try to tie it to the
No,
conversation, but
that's such a beautiful story.
it was a
And it's,
wonderful story. I said,
yeah.
oh my gosh, we got to share this.
And that's the reminder too that angels come in all forms. And then
Yes,
also,
messages come to us
um,
from every form. Hmm.
right, part of my download was a reminder that yes, we come here for the earth school, the experience of duality, and to basically grow our soul, but we don't come alone. We come with
Hmm.
guides, help us. They know how hard it is. They're there for
Ah,
us. And that's where, like, when you start having your spiritual awakening, you start noticing, like, they're always there with us, but
yeah,
you start noticing them once you start awakening. Then all of a
yeah,
sudden, you're like the angel numbers, or you start paying attention to, like that time when my GPS kept telling me get off the freeway, get off the freeway, and I was like, why?
right.
And I finally did, and my brakes gave out. Like I could have
Mm,
not been aware of, I could have not listened, and I
right.
wasn't listening at first, but um, yeah, and angels come in all forms, and that was,
They do.
like that little child has their guides. Their guides were talking to the
Hmm.
dog, or the dog was a guide and was
Hmm.
there to help. And that's just something with our raising our consciousness to the light. the higher your consciousness is, the more that you can see,
Mm-hmm.
basically, and the more
Mm-hmm.
that you will hear
Mm-hmm.
from source.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you're less alone, So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about how do we raise that consciousness? What is it we need to do that will help to um, elevate our consciousness to a level where we are projecting this light so that light is emanating from us and it just
so yeah. Well, I
grows.
mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It's work,
No, it
but
doesn't.
that's what like consciousness meditation is. That's why actually
Mm,
meditation is so important
I think
because
so.
mindfulness, I meant to say, you go into meditation and you become mindful, which is you don't necessarily quiet your mind, but you pay attention to what you're thinking.
Hmm.
And you, when they say become mindful, you pay attention to what thoughts are going through your mind and detach it. It's just so let's just say you're angry about something. And if you sit back and just and get quiet with it and let your mind think, let it go through the process.
Hmm.
But then you'll realize like your mind has its own life, you know,
Yeah.
and you can hear what your mind is saying. And it gives you an opportunity to be like, oh, that may not be right. Maybe I'm not going to act on that, I'm not going to act on that. I'm not going to just let my feelings act on this thought process I'm having right now.
Hmm.
That's where mindfulness practice starts kicking in. And
Hmm.
then through learning to quiet down, quiet yourself, just to,
Hmm.
meditate more, spend more quiet time, that's when
Yeah.
then you get to hear from source more, and that is hearing mindfulness. When you look at the thoughts, you hear the thoughts and go, maybe I shouldn't respond, or like, it's okay. I can detach from that action, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then you're also opening up yourself to listen to spirit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can go to centers, you can listen to spiritual leaders, but none of that really helps enough until you embody it yourself. And
Yeah.
what every leader says, every real leader says, is that, like what you were saying, it's all within us. You go to yourself to be your leader,
Hmm.
but be your leader from your heart, not from your ego.
Not from your ego.
Because God
Exactly.
is in here. God's
Hmm.
in your heart,
Hmm.
not your ego. And that's
Hmm.
what mindfulness helps to get out of the ego. Let the ego be your friend, but be led by the heart.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a key thing to be led by the heart. I know when I get myself quiet and centered and I try to, you know, take away anything that might cause any distractions, and then thoughts start to come into my head, I ask myself, what would God do? Or is this God, is this God centered or focused?
Yeah.
I have to ask myself that. Or is it my ego? Um, and it takes a minute, for me to discern which
Yeah.
is which, but I do take that time though to really ask that question. Is this really a God-focused thought or a behavior that I should act on or not? Or is it my ego?
Right. I started saying, if I act on this, am I acting from the God in me?
From the God in me. I love
Am I
that.
expressing God? Am I respecting God? Because everything you
Yeah,
do is acting from the God. Are you respecting God, the God in you, or is
yeah,
it your ego, your your individual, your separation from? And we have the free will to decide,
that's right.
and
Mm,
at least if you understand that you have that will, because we're gonna mess up. We're gonna sometimes be like, oh heck,
yeah, we're human.
I am gonna be ego right now. I just want to be ego right now.
Yes.
But at least, like if you're doing it, you're consciously being ego right now, then you
Hmm.
can realign yourself when you need to be. Let's just be ego for things like working harder at work to get a raise, you know what I mean? Or,
Mm-hmm.
um, like starting my nonprofit, that's
Hmm.
heart and ego working together. Like the heart
Yeah.
says, do this, ego goes, okay, well, what do I need to do? I need to learn these different things to do this.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Is it coming, am I trying to do this because there's, some individual profit that I'm gonna get from this, or is it something that's going to contribute towards something bigger than me? You
Right,
know, that's
right,
those are other questions. It depends on what comes into my head, but those are some of the questions that I contemplate as I'm trying to make a decision on what route to take.
right. And the fact that you contemplate is what my spiritual leader said. The fact that you can even stop and question yourself is
Mm-hmm.
when you know you're not coming from ego, because you can
Mm-hmm.
stop and question yourself
Mm-hmm.
instead
Mm-hmm.
of just assuming, I know I'm right and I'm going to do this and I'm in the right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know that you've been inspired to, some of the downloads that you've been given has been shared through not only these conversations that we were having and others that you're having with, but also through your creativity. And you've been writing poetry. And there's a particular poem that I'd like you to share with us that's related to the conversations that we're having right now.
Okay. Thank you. I'd love to.
Do you give it a title?
The title is, and it's on my Facebook page, Let the Light In. Let me get some water real quick.
Okay. And then, I think with every new posting, I have been sharing your contact information, I think your Facebook page is part of that. If not, we'll definitely share it there.
Okay. Yeah. It is a way that Spirit has given me to handle all the changes in
Hmm.
this deconstruction of Earth right now.
Okay.
And, you know, times when I want to go into anger that, it starts with journaling, and journaling is so important, and my journaling turns
Hmm.
poetry. So this is called Let the Light In. Okay. Shadows rising, hearts astray, ego wanders and lost its way. But this is not the truth of me. I am soul, I am spirit, eternally free. I am light in contrast, cast, learning love that's meant to last. Darkness whispers, tries to claim, but I remember my true name. Radical love I choose again, accountable through joy and pain. The shadow lives, it's part of me, but it shall not lead, I choose to see. The world's grown dim, the fear is loud, greed and sorrow from a cloud. Still we shine, we are the spark, even candles pierce the dark. Return, return back to the heart, where Christ's light makes healing start. Together rise hand in hand, we build again, we love, we stand. Let your joy be sacred art. Let the light outshine the dark. It's not too late, the time is now to shine with grace and show them how.
Ah, perfect. That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. Let that light shine. Oh, I love that. I love that. And so, in the description, I am going to place your Facebook page if it's not already there. I think it might be there. If not, it'll be there so that people will be able to go to it if they want to, I don't know, hear it again. I don't know, download it, whatever it is that you can make it available to them.
Right. They can DM me. I'm putting together a book of my collection, and I would love to share it after it's kind of put together, copywritten. And there's a lot there for, especially if you're going through a spiritual journey. Um, I've documented mine and all my learnings. That's what I'm doing through poetry.
Mm-hmm. And this is how we grow spiritually. This is how we support each other in our spiritual growth. So absolutely. I'm glad that you are compiling all of your poetry into a book, and we'll make it available to us. So thank you for this conversation. This was rich. I really got a lot out of it, and I had so much, I don't know, frustration that I was trying to vent. And I feel like I've gotten that out. And I hope for those of you who are joining us that feel some level of relief, to know that you're not alone in this and that we're all going through this, kind of struggling through this together, but we've got some guidance as to how we make sure that we become the dominant force on this earth and we contribute to this new earth. So thank you for joining us and thank you for, listening to us. And we'd love to hear your reaction to what you've heard. Obviously, you can place your comments in the comment section below this video. And of course, subscribe and share, what you're getting from this with those in your circle as well, your friends and family. Invite them to join you in the conversations that we've been having. So, on behalf of Tiffany Lee, I'm Gwendolyn Flynn, and we will see you next time.